Welcome to this edition of The Latest. I'm your host, Kate Pedersen, joined by Dave Pagnotta, and we are here in LA getting set for the 2025 NHL Draft, which takes place tomorrow. And the team with the number one pick in the draft is the New York Islanders. But there's been some action going on outside of the draft with the Isles, particularly with shopping around Noah Dobson as well as Jean-Gabriel Pageau. So what do you have there in terms of what's happening?
Yeah, Kate, a lot of activity today with respect to the Islanders and what may or may not be happening with them. They obviously, as you said, they have the first overall pick, but they're looking at adding somewhere in that top 5, 6, 7 range. They really like James Higgins. They want to try to figure that out. Now, there's a possibility that they move Noah Dobson in a package and either utilize those assets to move up to get a second first top 7 pick, or maybe they just make a move with Chicago. Maybe they make a move with Utah. There's a lot of moving parts here. There are discussions involving those clubs. We know St. Louis has had discussions as well with respect to Noah Dobson, as well as the Montreal Canadiens and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets love to get their hands on this kid. The Canadiens also very aggressive in having discussions with the Islanders about Noah Dobson as well. So we'll see kind of what transpires here over the next 30 hours or so. We'll see. And then Pageau, another one. He's in his final year of his contract, $5 million cap hit. There are a number of teams that are looking to bring in a 3C. He's somebody that's got a little bit of a lot of no trade protection with the 16-team list. But a lot of moving parts there as well. Keep an eye on Minnesota with Pageau.
Well, you brought up the Habs. They're looking to make a splash. What else can we be looking for there?
Yeah, the Canadiens, as I mentioned, active, obviously, with respect to Noah Dobson, but they're also dangling the 16th and 17th overall pick. There's a possibility they can move both. There's a possibility they move one of them. If they do, it's not necessarily to move up in the draft, Kate. They want to bring in some quality assets now that are going to help them kind of enhance this semi-rebuild that they're now in, because they're pushing past the rebuild phase. But they want to be competitive. They're looking at bringing in a young top 6 forward. If it's a 2C, beautiful. Otherwise, if they can bring in some offense to add to their top 6, that's something they'd like to do. I know they had some discussions with Dallas earlier on this month. And there's all this Jason Robertson talk going on. I don't think it got anywhere to that point, but that's kind of in the ballpark of what they're looking at right now.
All right, flipping over to Vancouver, they've got a pick later in the first round, but I'm wondering, where are they at with their talks with Tavares and Demko?
They're creating a lot of options, or trying to anyway, with respect to Demko. So yes, they are fully engaged in contract negotiations with Demko to try to get him locked into a mid-term extension. We've got short-term, we've got long-term, mid-term. That's going to be the new phrase, term, whatever, that we're going to start to implement. But they're looking at that as a possibility. If they can't make progress on an extension with Demko, they will continue to engage with other teams that have inquired about his availability from a trade market perspective. If they sign him, Artur Shilovs could be on the outs, will likely be on the outs, but right now they're trying to see if they can make that happen in terms of a contract. So Patrick Allvin and company keeping their options open for the time being.
All right, well, Buffalo made a splash. J.J. Peterka on the way out. Now we're talking about Bowen Byram. Are they going to try to move him? What are you hearing with that?
Yeah, draft term, he's on the clock. Where everybody's watching Bowen Byram right now, there's a lot of interest in him. I think teams that have circled in on Noah Dobson are also looking at Bowen Byram as a potential option in that mix as well. So we'll see kind of where that goes. But Kevin Adams, very aggressive in terms of his conversations involving Bowen Byram. Now, when they moved Peterka, they brought in Michael Kesselring, right shot D. That's what they've been looking for a while. So if they move out Byram, it's likely to be in a deal that includes a top 6 forward. They want to add more firepower up front, and it's a guy now. They're not rebuilding, again, for the umpteenth time. They're looking at bringing in quality assets now that can help them take those next steps. So Byram, without question, is a guy that a lot of people are looking at as a likely trade candidate, or not just a candidate, likely trade subject over these next couple of days here as we inch closer to draft time.
All right, the Capitals. We are hearing that they are busy at work behind the scenes, doing some housekeeping. What does that entail?
So they've got some players that are entering the final year of their deals, young players. And we're talking about McMichael. We're talking about Hayarvari. I almost messed that one up. I apologize. But they have engaged with both of their camps with respect to extensions. I think there's progress on both fronts. And I wouldn't be surprised around July 1 That's when they're eligible to sign an extension, will be July 1. If we hear some news that the Capitals take care of some housekeeping, got those guys locked in to long-term extensions. They're not the only team. There are other teams that are looking to get things done in that regard. We mentioned the Vancouver Canucks. Connor Garland, very interested in staying long-term. They started negotiations this week, so that's another thing to keep tabs on. But with respect to the Capitals, who made a minor trade, well, sort of minor trade today, they are looking at both of those players to get them locked into long-term extensions. Keep an eye on that when we hit July.
All right, lastly, something a lot of people have been keeping an eye on, the Toronto Maple Leafs, John Tavares and Matthew Knies. Where do they stand in those conversations? So
this week, contract negotiations with both have progressed positively. It looks like, I reported last week, 3 years offer on the table for John Tavares, just under $4 million. That's bumped up. I think we're somewhere in that $420 range. So 5 years on an AAV over 4 years. So we'll see kind of what transpires there, if they can make progress from that perspective. The other side with respect to Toronto and Matthew Knies, also progress on that front. We're likely looking at a 4 or 5 year contract for Matthew Knies. I think the Paterka trade, the Paterka trade/signing, he signed a 5-year, $7.7 million deal, AAV. I think that gave Knies' camp a little bit of extra muscle in their argument. You're probably looking at $7 million plus on a 5-year contract for Matthew Knies if it gets to the finish line in that respect, but it may even be a little bit more. But moral of the story, progress made on both fronts. We'll see kind of where that goes. In Toronto, by the way, if they can't get something done by July 1 with Knies, zero concern of an offer sheet. That's the least of their worries right now.
All right, well, the beauty of all of this is we're jumping right into 2 days of the NHL draft, but there can be action going on behind the scenes throughout, and then we roll right into free agency. So certainly a busy time in the NHL. Thanks so much, Dave, for your insight, and thanks for watching. It's the latest on the fourth period, and it's presented by Carlsberg.